Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Peas in a Pod, episode 302.
We made it.
We did. Episode 2 in our new shift in focus. So today we're going to do once more a look back on Sunday's message. We're in a series called One Life at a Time.
One life at a time. Right. Feels that until you said it out loud right there, I had not noticed how much it sounds like a soap opera.
Really?
One life at a time.
Well, there is one life to live.
Well, and one day at a what was
Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives. Days of Our Lives.
Man,
one day at a time. Is that a show too?
That was a sitcom back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, but they brought a Netflix version, which is really good.
Really?
They have a Netflix. I was a little shocked how good it was, and it was a live in studio audience. It was about I'm trying to think of the name of the woman. She was in that show 6 Feet Under. She's a Hispanic lady, and it's her family, and she's like a military mom. She's going through a divorce. Similar things. They live in an apartment complex, that.
Okay.
But anyways,
is there a crazy handyman that comes in
there is a crazy handyman. There's a crazy, a little inappropriate at times. Yeah, a little inappropriate.
I watched that show back in the 70s.
Yeah, that's when Valerie Bertinelli came on the scene. Isn't that right?
That's right. She was the daughter.
She was the daughter of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the time of TV land, so I've seen a lot of these shows. But I've seen, but the Netflix one, we watched it with our girls, and we had a really good time.
Okay.
So that's what the title made you think of.
I hadn't have thought of it until you said it. I came up with the title, then I heard you say it, and I said, that's a little soap opera.
Okay.
That's all right. Anyway, one life at a time.
And this week particularly, we were talking about making a difference in one life in our community through our
partnership.
Yeah, the partnerships that we've done. But this year particularly, we were focused on, since it's one life at a time, instead of looking for what programs or partners or those kind of things, but for us to move toward people instead of, we've always said, hey, you can't do everything, but you can do something.
Yeah.
We wanted to say you can love somebody. You can, and so I talked about the parable of the Good Samaritan and the person in need, who I think most of you know that parable, and then brought it down to the point of, hey, we do have some partnerships with people that allow you to get up close and personal with people, either our mentoring at Welch Elementary, the Bible Club at Welch Elementary, that you can do a Meals on Wheels route, where I do that and get to know, I drive a route myself, and I know all the people on my route. I get to pray for them as I go. I've been with several of them as they've lost spouses to death. And then you go to the one we're hoping to make a bigger thing this year, which is River Life, which we've had a partnership with, where people in our community that need some, they just can't do the repairs themselves on some light repairs at their home, or somebody needs a wheelchair ramp, or they need grass cut at their house, or they need some yard work done, that we're hoping that we can pair people, and I even have in my mind it could be families, because they don't have an age restriction, that people with elementary kids and the older people in the family, they could all go together, they could adopt someone, and they could work together to get to know this person and love that person at their home, and they would know who they were with. Instead of just doing something anonymously, you would be loving somebody. So that's the heart of what we were talking about.
Yeah. And I think for what we want to talk about today, I want to just sort of go into that tendency that I think we see in a lot of us to sort of want to, I guess the only phrase, we want to kind of outsource compassion. It's like, I want to be compassionate, but getting up close, hands dirty, face to face with somebody that may need compassion is not as easy as we want it to be sometimes. So it's hard to do. But what is it inside of us that makes a lot of our default reactions to say, well, there ought to be an organization that'll do that. Or the government ought to be doing this, or there ought to be a nonprofit taking care of that. What is it inside of us that makes us often lean in that direction, and how do we get past that?
Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but as you were saying, I'll say what I think I think there are probably a lot of reasons, and maybe they even show up in I don't talk about this in the message, but
Mhm.
in the parable, I think there's often something you have to do that you think is more valuable than loving the person right in front of you. So
Mhm.
like with the priest, if
Yeah.
he had happened to touch a
Mhm.
dead person, he couldn't have done the one thing he
Mhm.
needed to go serve in the
right.
temple. There's a thing that feels sort of maybe not safe to you. So you go to the other side and
Yeah.
you would give money to help, but
Uh-huh.
you being up close, and maybe that's not always it. There's something that just encroaches on us a little bit when it comes to getting up close. Now that sort of looks like our motives are bad. I don't think it's our motives as much as
No.
it
I don't
is
either. Yeah.
we don't have margin and space in our lives that allow us to in the moment ask God what I should do, and maybe I'm talking, I'm thinking as I'm talking about this, maybe we haven't allowed our faith to get to the point that if God did tell me to do something, I could trust I'll be okay.
Ooh.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
if I felt the Lord lead me to do something, if I had the space where I could slow down and I could actually think about it, I wouldn't either one. I hear a lot of people go, I like to just, those people that sit in the parking lot, I give money to them all the time. And I'm thinking, well, I know enough about helping people in those situations. It's not always how to
Mhm.
actually help.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I saw somebody from our church recently with a guy in a parking lot, and I at least admired this part of it when I drove by. He's sitting on the ground with the person talking to them.
Mhm.
I spent about 15 minutes in the store. When I came out, he's still sitting on the ground
Yeah.
talking to the person, and I thought, I don't know what all's going on in that. That's probably at least a better solution than I just either drive by because I feel unsafe or I don't have enough money or I don't know whether they're going to cheat me out of the money. I don't know enough around it. And maybe if there was a program for that, they'd be able to handle it better than I can handle it. At least it moved me to give some of myself in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's sort of to go off of what you were saying, Ed, do you guys find, I'm just going to say, I think there's something in me often that when I am asked or someone presents a need to me or a problem to solve or an issue, I often hesitate because I don't know how much more energy, time, or money that it's going to take to fix that or to help that. And I'm not sure I'm willing to give anything more than that. And so because I don't know where it's going to go, I tend to not even want to start.
Yep.
I feel like, well, if I give a little, they're going to ask for a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to. And then there brings up in that thing of me where I may not have everything.
That's right.
And I may have to say no to somebody
Yeah.
at some point. And I feel like I can't do that or I feel uncomfortable doing that.
Yeah.
And so I just don't do anything.
Yeah, and that's a little bit, and I don't know that this is totally the answer to that either. I know when it happens in me, and when I've downloaded that later with the Lord, it often is, I'm not really trusting that it's okay if I do my part.
That's it.
And that God would bring somebody else to do the
That's
rest
right.
of it if it needed to happen.
Mhm.
And if I did something that I thought God led me to do that wasn't really the thing he wanted me to do, that'd be okay too, because it won't be the first time in my life I have not done what the Lord wanted me to do.
Yeah.
It's hard for us in that moment to believe that God might want me to just do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll say the other thing that I think, and this has been a learning for me from the whole time I've been in ministry, because I grew up in an environment where, and this is going to sound bad, although I think there are people that grow up. I was taught that if you were poor and you didn't have and those kind of things, and I grew up that way, it's because you just didn't do the things to get you to the place you could have it. That nobody in the United States that actually has, nobody should be in that place if they just have the right kind of things. And so maybe we can help them a little bit, but you may be facilitating it if you're wrong. And early in my 20s, again, the Lord began to put people around me that began to shape me and see that I'm wrong. And one of the things I think we miss out on when we don't engage with people like a kid at Welch. I've known a lot of people go do this at mentoring and they go, I'm not really good with kids. And I go, man, it's 30 minutes sitting with a kid that may not have any other adult that gives them full attention for 30 minutes. You can give 30 minutes and play Candyland.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can give, it's 30 minutes. I know.
Mm-hmm.
And and again, it's a part of that stuff of not really trusting that what Jesus said, that when I go to this, I'm meeting Jesus there.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that I'm not doing for people. They're actually doing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am learning things about the Lord and about myself that I would not have known if I hadn't obeyed him and just done it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
And that thing where Jesus says, as much as you did to these, you did it for me.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be with Jesus, we have this thing that says, I need to learn more, or I need to pray more, or I need to do these things. And Jesus has said, you want to see me? I'm all around you, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the poor and in those in need. All you got to do is go show up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll open yourself to it, I will be there with you.
And it's okay if you don't do everything and solve every problem. That wasn't what you were called to. I said this recently in a service as we were talking. It's, sometimes we don't take a step because we don't think we can take all the steps.
That's right.
And you never were called to take all the steps or do
right.
all the things.
That's right.
You were called to be faithful in this moment.
That's right.
In this situation. And then being able to step back from that and go, well, that was good.
I did what I felt I should right there.
And me and God, we maybe accomplished something today,
Yep.
and that's enough. And then allow, like you said, maybe there's something else that's coming later that another person is going to be called.
God has
to do.
somebody else on deck for that.
And we've talked about this too. It's that part of following Jesus that is, I release the outcomes to him.
Yeah.
And I just focus on the faithfulness that he's presented to me in the moment. And I let whatever comes, whatever he's going to do through me or through somebody else. I can just play a role and be okay with that.
I was describing to somebody recently, and in previous podcasts, we said I'm not going to talk about the Braves, but I love baseball. And so I think one of the toughest, I love baseball because it's really not a team sport. It's an individual sport that involves a team.
Mm.
So it's primarily the competition between the pitcher and the batter. And, but the tough part when you're on the team and you're losing, if you're the batter, is I feel like I better hit a home run because ain't nobody else doing nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it causes me to often do nothing because I try so hard to do everything that I get in a slump from trying to do too much. I don't trust the guys behind me or the girls behind me to do their part. And what I'm trying to say is I think that happens so much in the kingdom of God I think I'm the only one that God has pointed this person out to. And he wants me to totally fix everything about their life. And this is just me. There's a little bit of pride that says, and I want the experience of being the one to have fixed it.
Yeah.
Like I told the guy from Elevate Coweta, who I met with just recently, I've been mentoring now at Welch. This will be my third year. And I haven't had the same kid any 2 years, even though most of the people on our team get the same kid because it's a transient school. I have had often kids that are very troubled. And I haven't had that experience that other people have where they see me and my kid comes running to me. My kid often when I show up at Welch has been in trouble, and the principal's often when I get there, and that's what we have to talk about. And in some ways it could be frustrating, but in other ways I go, hey man, ain't nobody knows better being in the principal's office than me. And maybe that's what God intended me to do, was just talk to this kid about taking the next step. And, like my kid from last year, he's moved away now. And so I'll get another one this year. Is just doing my part, just doing what I'm supposed to do. That's hard to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of what y'all have already said, I think is a lot of what is the issue for
Mm-hmm.
most of us. I think we have an efficiency mindset,
Mm-hmm.
which means most of us, we really want everything we do to have the maximum impact it can have. I want, and so we even say things like, well, I could give $1 to you, but if I give $1 here, it gets multiplied and it goes to all these different things. So we really have this kind of efficiency mindset of how every dollar we spend, every moment I spend volunteering with a person, how it goes. I think we're just really bad at measuring
Mm-hmm.
what actually has the biggest impact. I think that's a lot of what Jesus' parables are.
Mm-hmm.
Is you really think even the Good Samaritan. We'll just take the one that said, you really think this priest being able to go to the temple and do his thing is going to have the maximum impact, so you can't stop with this guy. Well, there's hundreds of other priests they could step in. Someone else could step in, but you really think this is the bigger impact. This was the bigger thing you needed to do.
Yep.
The one that was in front of you. Now, all that is also to not say, because I've been on the other side of this. I've been kind of on this side of compassion work or justice work or whatever you want to say, of the really personal, one life at a time thing for a long time. And sometimes you get in your head, then that means what the government's doing or what the nonprofit's doing, then that means that's not as important as this. And I don't want to get to that either. We as a church have funded the starts of lots of nonprofits.
That's right.
Yep.
And I would say in America, one of the benefits we have with voting and with all the things we can do is that if you really do feel called that, hey, the best solution for this problem is something that the government can do. I'm not saying whether that is right or wrong. I'm saying if you feel that God is leading you, one of the benefits you have is you can vote to see something like that happen. So loving your neighbor is not only the one-on-one, one life at a time thing that you do.
That's right.
But the thing I think gets in the way on both sides is that we really want to look at where we think we can break life down into its moving parts, and I'm going to improve every little thing in my life. I want to make sure every dollar I spend is getting the maximum return it can get. I want to make sure every moment I spend is getting its maximum effort on whatever it is,
Efficiency.
It's efficiency. I have this mindset of, I want to make sure, every day of my routine is perfectly structured in such a way that I'm getting the maximum impact of my life. And I just think we're bad at measuring those things. And I think we're bad at measuring the goal. The goal is not that we eliminate all forms of poverty. And I know that feels like it should be the goal. But it seems like what the goal is what Jesus says is the goal is that we feed the poor and we care for the poor. We do this. And it doesn't mean if there are ways that we can eliminate certain elements of things, we don't do that. We don't. But as Ed's already said, there is also this sense of, we know poverty is the result of human sin.
Mm-hmm.
There is enough to go around.
Mm-hmm.
There is more than enough.
Yes.
I remember seeing somewhere that the amount of money that Americans spend on ice cream per year, if it were given, it would feed the entire world and give enough medication to every person at the current medication price. You don't even have to pass laws to make sure the medicine goes down. We could spend all that just on the amount we spend on ice cream. Now,
sure.
In a good conference speaker, you go, so no one buy ice cream this year.
Yeah.
Well, that's not
It's not going to happen for me. I love ice cream.
Ice cream's great.
I'll give still and eat ice cream.
Yes.
The point is not to say we know there's enough to take care of everyone.
Yes.
It is ultimately a sin issue. And so what Jesus would say is, all of you who are allowing Jesus to deal with your sin, you then must alleviate the problem of sin in the world, which is not solely there are people who can't eat, and not solely that there are people who can do this. It's that there are people who have, as John the Baptist would say, more than they need. You have 2 shirts, and you've decided, me having a backup shirt's more important than this guy ever having a shirt. And that issue comes down to, sin has affected my heart and said, this isn't my brother, and this isn't my sister. And so in my mind, the way it works is, what Jesus is teaching us is this idea of what some people call kinship with the poor, or being family, of seeing other people and going, I'm near enough to a person. So like Ed kind of mentioned with the mentoring thing, it's me looking at a child who's at risk and going, if I could sit with you like I would my own child, even just for 30 minutes a week, and I could just love you and care for you, man, that is doing something in a person's life. Or if I could go and give you a meal on Meals on Wheels, but I also would carry you by name and I'd pray for you like you were my family member. And I'd hear your stories. And sometimes we know, certainly with elderly people who are often the people on Meal on Wheels routes, just someone who would sit and listen to me and what goes on in my day because no one else is listening, the benefit that does for me. And then as Ed said, the benefit it does for me as a person, because I not only see Jesus, but my heart starts to change in a certain way that isn't efficient. It takes a lot of time, and it's one person. It's not every single poor person, but it might shape my heart in the way that I know anybody, my wife and I we're foster parents and we've adopted through that. Anyone who's ever engaged with the foster system, you think of when people talk about foster children, or when you hear about someone whose parents were incarcerated and everyone says, good, we got them out of the home. And you go, yes, in one way that's good, but there's a lot of other damage. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other things going on that those kids are separated from their parents, or when anybody I know who's ever had a family member incarcerated, you think differently about prisoners. Anyone who has a family member who's been on drugs, you think different of when people talk about all the drug addicts, or when someone says, hey, that person on the street, they're just going to use it to buy drugs. You go, yeah, but there's a story, I'm sure. I don't know the story, but I know, and you instantly feel a different, that person, that problem now has a face and has a name, and you go, I don't know their story, but I want to get to know their story. What that does to a person, and then when we talk about a church, what it does to a group of people who have been formed in that way. You can't buy that person's vote. You can't just throw out some propaganda and those people go, oh, well, okay, fine, let's make that happen. You can't suddenly force that person to treat people in a different way. This is Jesus' kind of bigger picture. And as we said, it starts with one life at a time. But that doesn't mean we also don't give money to nonprofits, and we want those things to, because sometimes when I have, if I've got a family member who's on drugs, right, I might go, thank God for Coweta Force.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God there's someone, because they got more resources than I got. And I might be called in to go, well, I want to give some money to make sure they do more for other people. But that doesn't then stop me going, and now I won't ever talk to my son who's on drugs. Mm-hmm. I go, I'm going to help this one person and these many people. I can do both. I don't have to pick one or the other. I can do both things. And like we said, but that one life at a time really shifts something for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it shifts something in the poor too. One of the things that I had when when I take mission trips, I would always have people read the book When Helping Hurts. And one of the things that the authors of that book, and there are other books that discuss the same thing, is that poverty is not the lack of resources only. That poverty is the lack of resources is a symptom, and it's I'm separated from. I may be separated from my Creator. I'm separated from my community, or I'm separated from my environment. And so when we go in to solve it, I have to work on those problems. And what I find in working on the problem with a person who is experiencing financial difficulty, poverty in some way with food or whatever is, I find that I also have some of those things. I have not totally seen my Creator that they show me. I have been separated from this person that was in my community. And as we begin to work together to rebuild that connection, it helps us both begin to rebuild, and that person then can have the footing to get to the place that they need to be. Providing resources is not the only thing a person needs.
Yes.
Very seldom is that the total
And the relationship
solution.
might be the central thing, because when a person is in any kind of poverty, whether they're homeless or not, whether they have addiction issues, whether they have any of these kind of things, one of the first things that poverty, addiction, other things, it does isolate you from other people.
Yeah.
It is the nature of it. And so when a person goes, like y'all were saying, I can help you at first, but I may not be able to keep that up. The love to go, I'm going to still be with you. Yeah. I'm not leaving you just because I can't pay for your next rehab. I can't pay for this next whatever, or I can't pay for you to get in a hotel room tonight. But I still, when I see you, I'm going to come, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to care about you. It relationally brings something.
Yeah, there's very seldom that I have dealt with people that I know that are in those situations, particularly on the relational end, that you won't find. I think I can think of a couple of people that I have known. One that's a nurse and works at a fairly high paying job, but not enough necessarily to pay for everything she needs in this community. And she and her kids were living in the hospital parking lot. And she'd get off work and then come out and do homework with the kids in the parking lot in our community. But I knew before she told me that she also was estranged from all the people in her world.
Yeah.
Because if there had been other people in her world,
Yeah.
somebody would have said, hey, I'll take care of your
Yeah,
kids.
you
You can stay
Yeah.
here. There is a place. I'll help you out until you can get on your feet. But that's a shaming kind of thing in our wealthy kind of culture. And so you isolate more, and you have to begin to rebuild those kind of things. And that happens life on life.
Yeah.
There are programs. I need programs, but money itself won't solve all that relational stuff that's got to be helped with as well.
And I think to that point, and I think to the point Ed made earlier about our hope with like River Life and some other things where we're hoping families can do this together. There's a real benefit of you as a family doing this, because you talked in the last episode of learning from your kids. This is one area I have really learned from my kids on, because early in when they had moved into our home and our kids were still little, we would go to Bridging the Gap, a local organization here that does food distribution. And this was still during COVID. And I think they're back to now they would do big meals with everyone in the same place, and they would feed them. But during COVID, that wasn't possible. And so our family, along with some other families in the church, would once a month go out and we would buy McDonald's biscuits, and we'd go out and we'd go to each car and hand them to people. But we'd stop at each car and ask them their names and ask them what we could be praying for them about, and hear their stories. And I remember early on, I would just tell my girls every time we go is, hey, every time we go, the most important part is when we get to hear people's stories and we get to talk to them. I said, that may be the only time anyone talks to them. And I remember one time we were out there, and there was a man in his 60s, and he told us it was the first time. It was right after the Noonan tornado, and he was living in a rental home at the time. And he said when the tornado came and they rebuilt it, the insurance money helped them rebuild the home much nicer, and so they were charging much higher rent. And this guy lost where he was living, and he told us, he said, my wife's not here with me right now, but we're living in the woods in our car. And he said, I'm 65. I've never been homeless my entire life. And he starts to cry and talk about how hard this was for him. And I watch my daughters at such a young age wrap their arms around him as we're praying, just for them, just for him in that situation, and me really feeling that. Well, then you fast forward a couple years later, we're not doing the same thing that we've done, but my kids still really have that heart. And one day we're in Goodwill, and my oldest daughter is going, hey, she's buying this jacket and this wool, like flannel shirt, and it's around Christmas. And I said, who is that for? Because it was way too big for her. And she said, oh, it's for David. And I said, I don't know who David is. And she's like 12 at the time. And she had done some cat sitting and gotten a bunch of money. And Jennifer, my wife, walks over and goes, oh, that's the guy that she's been getting to know, the homeless guy in the parking lot at the grocery store. And my wife had told me before about every time they go by, she has her own cash. She gets out of the car, and my wife told me, I'll watch her. She goes over there and just sits with him the whole time that we're getting gas, and she'll just talk with him. And then she goes, and then the other day, she not only gave him the money, she stopped, and I saw she had her hands on him, and she was praying for him at 12. And she's sitting there praying for him. And then she left, and he said he's living in his car with his son, and they don't have any coats. I'm going to go ahead and go buy them a coat. And so she goes and buys them. Well, then the next time we come, he's not there. And we don't see him for like 3 months. And we're like, oh, what's going on? Well, then one day we're in the parking lot with one of my younger daughters. And she goes, Dad, David's back. And I said, okay. And so I go up there and I said, hey, I've never met you before, but my daughter, Destiny, goes, oh, I love Destiny.
Mhm.
And I said, "Oh, you remember that?" He goes, "Oh yeah, she always stops and talks to me." He goes, "She's a really sweet young lady." And he said, "A couple months ago, um, a lady had stopped here, and she started a GoFundMe for me to get me in a hotel." And she goes, she shared it with a bunch of people, and it raised so much money. My son and I, all the cold months for 3 months, we were able to stay in an extended stay motel,
Cool.
just through the Cash App. And when I came, I said, "Well, Destiny's going to come back and give you this code." He said, "Oh, I can't wait to talk to her." She goes, "That's my friend." And I said, "Well, she thinks of you as a friend as well." And I thought, I took from that, and I was like, man, I was really trying to teach her a lesson of this is what Jesus is like, and the lesson she taught me. And I don't have many friendships like that.
Right. That's right.
But it's the benefit of, if we get this in the blood of our church and in our families, we will find ourselves learning lessons about what Jesus is like, what God is like. And I think by just the care that God has to sit with a person and just go, I have a solution. I have a way to fix this problem, but I'm willing to sit and to wait with you and just be with you in the midst of everything. And what a benefit that could be to us.
She had the advantage that and this cycles back to where we started. She didn't think, I can solve all his problems.
Right.
I can't get him out of his car. I don't have that ability, but I can get him a Coke.
I can do something.
And I can pray with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be enough for me.
Yep.
And whether she trusted God to do the rest, or we know that God is always at work, even when we can't see him at work. And God had this other lady that was on deck. And that's the way that he's at work in the world.
Right.
Yep.
I just have to be willing to do my part.
Yep.
It's like the kingdom of God is everywhere.
That's right.
If we just have eyes to see it.
That's right.
Exactly right.
All right. Well, guys, come on back next week. We're going to do this once again. We'll look back a little bit on Sunday's message, go a little deeper in that. We also have a question coming up real soon.
Yep.
So not sure when, but we're going to get to it in the coming week. So y'all come back for that, and we'll see you next time.